Hey, what's up YouTube? My name is Brett Westwood, and today I'm going to show you how to use Next.js 13's post request API endpoint and how you can hook it up to a register form like this and actually create a user inside of your MongoDB database. We are going to use Prisma, which is an ORM, which is going to connect Mongo to Next.js. I'm going to show you exactly how you could do that. So we're going to do brett@gmail.com. And then we could do anything in the password. And all we're going to do is click register. And we used a fetch request getting a status of 200. And we created this user inside of our database by sending this payload. If we go to MongoDB and browse the collection, you're going to see the new user called brett@gmail.com with the random password I just entered. So if you want to learn how to do this and actually create users inside of your database for your application, hit that like button and also subscribe to my channel for more content like this. So let's get started right into it from scratch. So the first thing you need to do is you can go to the Next.js 13 beta docs. And next thing after that is you want to open up your terminal. So I'm going to open up my computer's terminal. I'm going to CD into where I want to put this project. You can do this on your desktop if you want as well. Next thing I'm going to do is in the Next.js 13 beta docs, we are going to go to installation. Then we're going to say automatic installation. And it says npx create -next-app at latest with the flag experimental app. We are going to copy and paste that in here. And then we just do YouTube register as the project's name. We're going to press enter and it's going to ask us a few questions here. So what do you like to use? TypeScript, I'm going to say no. ESLint, no. We are going to use Tailwind CSS, but we are going to use a regular register form that's going to be an actual just template. So we're not going to actually create it. We're just going to copy and paste something over it, where I'll show you where you can get the template as well. So we're going to say yes to that. The source directory, we're going to say no. The import alias, we're just going to keep the @ symbol. And then now it's just going to install all the dependencies and also initialize our project. This should take about 15 seconds. So we're just going to wait around for a sec. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to CD into the project, whatever you named it. I've named it YT register. After that, you can press code dot. Code dot is going to take this project and bring it into your text editor, which mine is Visual Studio Code. So as you can see, I move VS Code here. I can remove this terminal, just close it. I'm going to open up my Visual Studio Code with this brand new default Next.js 13 application. So as you can see here, we have app directory. We have the Tailwind config file. So we have Tailwind already set up, ready to go. We don't have to do anything with that. And we have the app file, and then we have an API folder inside of it. This is where we're going to do all of our API routes. And the only API route we're doing is a post request for this specific project. And you see right here, we have a page.js, which is your home page. And this is going to be the default Next.js 13 homepage. I'll show you how that looks real quick. So I'm going to open up the terminal, run my development server by running npm run dev. And we could do localhost 3001. Or let me exit out of this other server real quick. Terminate this batch and run npm run dev again. So now we're on localhost 3000 because you only could have one development server on localhost 3000. And you're going to see the default Next.js, how it looks. It is zoomed in at 200%. But that's how that code is on that page.js file. So if we want, we could actually remove everything inside of it. So from the main tag and down below, we could just have a regular fragment. And inside of the fragment, we could have an h1 and we could just say homepage. Okay. And now the way we are going to create different pages for our users so they can navigate through is we are going to create a page called register because we are going to create a register form. So inside of app, we're going to have a new folder. and this new folder is going to be called register. So that is going to be the actual URL path. So it's going to be localhost 3000/register. Obviously, if you go in production mode, whatever you name your domain, it'll be that /register. So we're going to have the register folder. So every folder is considered a URL path. And then inside of every path on the client side, we need a page.jsx. This is where we're going to type all the code so the user can see. And like I said, we're not going to actually create the form. We're just going to go to the Tailwind CSS templates and we're going to use that. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick to start. So all we have to do is go to tailwindcss.com. We're going to go to the components, browse components, and then it's going to give us a bunch of different components like hero sections, feature sections, a call to actions, pricing, all that. We are going to scroll down and we are going to go to sign in and register. I think the first one is free. I do have the paid version, so I'm hoping the first one is free. I really can't tell you if it is or not. But as you can see, this is how it looks here. It is responsive and is done in Tailwind CSS, which is what we have in our project. We are going to click code, and then we can just copy the whole code, and then we're going to paste it inside of this page JSX register. That's our register page. So we're going to paste that code. But if you scroll up to the top here, it's going to say that we actually need the plugin Tailwind CSS/forms. So we need to actually install this package. So what I can do is I can stop the development server real quick, and I'm going to say npm install at Tailwind CSS/forms. So that is what we're going to install into our project. We're going to press enter. After we install that, it's telling us that we need to go into our config file inside of the comments here. And inside of the plugins, we need to import it by using the syntax require. So we're going to go here. We're going to type in require parentheses at Tailwind CSS/forms. So that is all we need for the plugins right here. So next thing we can do is we can look to see how it looks. So we need to run the development server, npm run dev, and then while that's starting up, I'm going to go inside the global CSS, remove everything from lines 5 through 27. We don't need any of that CSS. We do need to keep lines 1 through 3, however, for Tailwind. So it looks like our development server started back up. We can refresh localhost 3000, and all you're going to see is the homepage right here at the top left. It says homepage. We have nothing to link to register, so you're going to just type that in at the search bar up top, so localhost 3000/register, and here is our nice looking responsive Tailwind CSS register form. Obviously, it says sign in, so we could change a few things. Let me do that real quick. So if we go into the page, we could change the function name to register. This is not going to affect anything at all. It's just for your sake. We can remove all of the comments. So you can remove all the comments that came with that template. Instead of sign into your account, we could just put register your account, right? And then the button, instead of saying sign in, we need to say register. Okay. So as you can see here, let me go back to see how it looks. We have a little register page. You can style it however you want, but this is what we're going to use for this project. Next thing you want to do, which seems logical, is we have no state on the page. So we actually have no way of getting the information that somebody types in. So to do this, we need to import useState from React. But if we are using any of useState, useEffect, any of that, we do need to have this page marked as a use client. That means that this page is no longer server-side rendered by default. It is a client page, which is fine. You're going to have to do that if you use useState. So we're going to import useState from React, and we're going to have two states. We're going to have the email and the password. That's what we need, right? And this Copilot is actually telling me the recommendation of what I need, which is email, set email, use state, which is correct. Let me do that again. All you gotta do is press tab if you have Copilot, and then here's the first state. And then second state is password. So as you can see, we have email and password. Next thing we need to do is we need to go inside of each input. We need to add a value, which is going to be, first one is email. And then we need to on change so we could actually receive what they're typing. And that we're going to have an anonymous function that's going to take in an event as the parameter. And we're going to set the email to the e.target.value. And we also need to get the value, which is password here. And then the on change, we're going to have a set password to the e.target.value. So it looks like everything's working. If we want to test that out real quick, you could inspect, open up your DevTools. I do have components tab right here that you have to have downloaded, and you click register. So we have two states right here. And they're empty strings right now, but if I type in something like my email right there, it should pop up. Type in something in the password, as you can see it pops up. So that means our state is actually working and we are receiving the state. But we're not sending the state anywhere yet. So we do need to create a database, backend API endpoint to set everything up. It sounds hard, but if you watch this, it won't seem as hard. So we can close this up, minimize this, and we need an on submit. So we can remove this action and method of post here. We'll create an on submit, and we need a function. We'll say register user. We haven't created this function, so you can name the function whatever you want. So right above the return, we're going to initialize this function, register user. It is going to be an async function that's going to take in the event handler. It's going to be an arrow function, and what we're doing inside of this function is we are going to fetch that API endpoint. So right now it actually is pretty much giving us almost everything we need, but it looks like it's giving us a little more information than I want. But as you can see there, we're just making a fetch request. You can also make a request using Axios if you really wanted to, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to do the fetch request for now. I know if you look at the Next.js docs, it actually recommends using the fetch API. So for that, all we have to do is say fetch. Then we have to go to that URL, which is localhost 3000/API/register. That's where our API endpoint is. Then we need to pass in a few parameters inside of an object. So inside first method, we need to have it post. We need to define the method. It is going to be post. After that, let me make sure I have everything. There we go. After the method post, we need to define the headers. So the headers we're going to have as application/JSON. So that's how we're going to send all of our information. So that email and password is going to be sent like that. Next, we need to send the body as a JSON stringify. And inside of that, we need to pass in the email and the password. So we have that passed in right there. So that's all we are sending. We need the method of post. The headers is the content type application JSON. And the body is a JSON.stringify where we're stringifying the email and the password. So this would not obviously work because we have not set up this API/register endpoint, and that is going to be the next step we're doing now. So to do that, we can actually go in the API folder and we could delete this hello route that they have just for an example. We're going to create a new folder and we're going to call this register. This has to be called registered. If you don't call it registered, this endpoint won't work unless you change it here in the fetch. Then it would work. So we're going to have a register, and inside of every API endpoint, you need a route. A route file. That's the naming convention you need. So if you use TX, you use TS. If you use JS, you could use JSX or JS. I like using JS for backend. So let me do route.js. So The route.js, we need to create that. And before we create the endpoint, we actually need to install a few packages to make this actually work. So we do need Prisma as a package, and we need the Prisma client. So I am going to Control-C, terminate the batch. We're going to stop the server, and we're going to install Prisma as a dev dependency. And then it's at Prisma/client for the client. Or no, let's not do that first because we actually need to initialize it. So we do that, npm install Prisma. And then we need to initialize Prisma because we actually need that Prisma file inside of our folders, and that's going to create the file. So npx Prisma init. When you do that, it's going to do a few things. Did I type it wrong? npx Prisma init. Let me see if I typed that wrong or not. So we have Prisma installed as a dev dependency. Okay. Then we need npx. I must have typed it wrong. Prisma init. Okay. Yeah. So now after you initialize Prisma by typing in npx Prisma init, make sure you spell it right. Obviously, don't do what I did. You're going to have a few things that happen. We're going to have, first is a new folder called Prisma, and you're going to have a schema.prisma in here. Next thing is it's going to create an env file for you automatically. This is where you keep your strings, your database connection strings, secret keys, any of that stuff inside of your environment variable. So first thing I want to do is go inside of this schema.prisma file. And inside of this, there's a few things you have to change. So the provider that they do by default is the Postgres SQL. We are not using that. We're going to use MongoDB. So you just got to change that to MongoDB. You don't have to install MongoDB. All you have to do is change the provider. And the database URL, if you look at that in the env file, it is a Postgres SQL. So that means we need to get a connection string from MongoDB. So let's just do that real quick. We are going to open up this, and we're going to go on mongodb.com. If you don't have an account, register, or you can log in with Google or GitHub. And then after you do that, you should have an empty page. But here on the top left, you should see something that says new project. We're going to create a new project. We are going to name this register/YouTube -YouTube. And then add members and set permissions. We don't need to create or add permissions, so we just click create project. After that, we're going to build the database. So we're going to use the free version. And then the provider is going to be AWS, and then you should use your recommended region, whatever it is with the star. I'm on the East Coast, so that's why it's Virginia. So we're going to keep the name cluster 0 as is. You could change it if you want. Really not a big deal. We just got to verify all images with the motorcycle. That'd be bad if I failed that, because that was a pretty easy one too. So we're going to have bwestwood11 as the username. You could do your username to whatever you want. And the password could be whatever you want. Before you go on, make sure you remember your password. You need it. So I'm going to open up my notepad. I am going to copy that password that they gave me. And then we're just going to click create user. So as you can see here, the username was created with authentication type as password. Where would I like to connect from? I am going to use my local environment. So use this to add network IP addresses to the IP access list. This can be modified at any time. So you just got to connect your IP address, which I've already done, and then just click go to database. After that is done, sometimes it takes a minute, 2 minutes, sometimes it's a few seconds, or sometimes it's instantaneous like it is now. So now my database is ready to go. As you can see, it has the status as active, and we are going to connect with the connection string. So we're going to click connect, and we're going to access our data through the VS Code. So it's going to say work with your data in MongoDB directly from your VS Code environment. So we're going to click that, And then we have this connection string right here. We're going to copy that. We can minimize our pages now. Go to the env, paste that string, and as you can see in the string, we have my username, bwestwood11, but the password I saved in my notepad. That's why I did it. So we're going to replace this password with the password we actually have. If you don't do that, you're not going to be able to connect. And then also make sure you have like a /test/ whatever your collection is, because if you don't have that, that means you used the wrong connection string for this Prisma example. And if you do make any changes to your env file, you should restart your development server and start it back up. But we are good with the env file now. And next thing we want to do is we want to create a schema. So it's going to be model user, and it's going to look like that. And if you are curious of why yours isn't turning blue and green like these colors right here, you just have to go to your extensions, type in Prisma, and it should be the first one with 802,000 downloads, 5 stars. So you need to install that as an extension, and then you will get these certain colors to make it look prettier. So we are going to create a model, which is like a schema, like making sure we define the types before we actually send the information to the database. So the first thing is we need an ID. So this ID is only unique to MongoDB. So if you're not using MongoDB, the ID might be different looking, but the ID is going to be a string. And then all of this information I'm typing here, you could find on the docs. This is the only way you could actually use an ID inside of MongoDB using Prisma. So this is how it has to be typed. And then add DB object. So we need an ID from the user. We need an email, which is going to be a string and unique. And then we need a password, which is going to be a string. So that is the types we're going to use for the schema for our user. After that, now I want to install that one package I was trying to earlier. So it's going to be npm install Prisma/client. So this is going to allow us to use methods from Prism. So this is going to allow us to create the user inside of the database. So to do that, we are going to go inside of our API endpoint of the register, inside of that route. And inside of the route, we are going to first initialize Prisma. So to do that, we could import that Prisma client from @Prisma client. And then we have one more import actually, which is going to be Next response. So instead of just a regular response and requests, Next has its own response and requests to make it more easier for the developer to use. Better developer experience. So we do want to initialize Prisma. So to do that, it's going to be Prisma equals new Prisma client. Okay. Now we're actually going to create the post request endpoint. So to do that, this is the syntax right here. Export async. It's going to be asynchronous function. And then whatever the naming is, like get request, post request, you have to actually type it. So it's going to be post. So we're going to have a request. That's all we need to pass it as the parameter. And then inside of the code block, we are going to, so this GitHub pilot code is actually not correct. We're not getting the request.body. If you're using like the MERN stack, like Express, anything like of that nature, it is going to be the request.body. But we're not. It's actually request.json. So we are going to destructure the email and password. And then we are going to await the request.json. Nope. If you try to do request.body, you are not going to be able to get anything, and you're probably going to get an error. Let me do a space right here. We're going to create a user. And then to create this user, we're going to use those Prisma functions. So it's going to be prisma.user.create And then we're going to create the object with a data. And then that data is going to have the object of email and then password. And then we can just put a comma here. And then below that, we need to return now. We need to return that next response. Instead of just response, we have a next response. And then we're not going to do that. We're going to return to some JSON. And then we're going to have a message saying user was created successfully. And then we're actually going to pass that payload of user. So whatever we get inside of this user. So this is how your whole post request endpoint looks. Pretty simple, not too crazy. 17 lines of code, if that. So we have the schema ready. We could exit out some of these pages, make everything look nicer. And so now we're fetching that request from this endpoint right here. Okay, so let me make sure my development server is running, which it isn't. So we're going to do npm run dev. We'll go to localhost 3000. And we are going to test to make sure everything works. And if something doesn't work, we'll try to debug it real quick. So there is no link to the register page, so you just have to type it. And now we have to register your account. So let's inspect the page. Let's go to the network tab. Let's just go to the console. We have no errors in the console, so we're good there. We'll go to the network tab. And then we will try to type in an email and password and see if everything goes smooth. So if everything goes smooth, we should get a 200 request. If it doesn't, and we have something on the server side, we'll probably get a 500 request. And then we could check consoles and make sure everything's good, but we'll try this out first. So we'll have brett@gmail.com. I'm going to do the password as 123456. And I'm going to click register. It's pending, and it looks like we had a status of 200. Let's read everything so far. So if you look here, our headers, our request method was a post request, and the request URL was from that API/register endpoint. The status code we got was a 200 OK back. The payload we sent was a brett@gmail.com with a password of 123456. That next response.json should send right here where it says user created successfully. That's the message. And then it should give us all of the user payload from that prisma.user.create. So there it is. We have the ID, the email, and password. So everything looks good there. We should definitely have our user inside of our MongoDB database. Let me just confirm real quick. So let me refresh this. We are at the register-YouTube. Let's look in our collections. In our collections, we should have a test/user and the brett@gmail with the password of 123456. Obviously, there's a lot more steps to actually secure somebody's password. You can decrypt the password and hash it if you want to make it more secure. But this is a very simple tutorial on how to create a MongoDB database using Next.js 13 and its API endpoints while using Prisma ORM to connect everything together. So if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more stuff exactly like this. I'm going to add timestamps below so you guys could just skip to any part you need. If you need any questions or any problems you have, you could rewatch those as well. I am going to put the source code inside of the description below. And if you can, like I said, it'll mean a lot if you could just subscribe to me. Thank you for watching and hope you guys have a great day.